Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the life of Mary Anning.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, and she's a woman who quite literally unearthed a revolution in scientific thinking. But before we get into her groundbreaking discoveries, picture this. It's 1800,
Okay.
raging thunderstorm, Lyme Regis, England. Bolt of lightning strikes, tragically killing 3 women, but a baby, little Mary Anning, in their care survives.
Wow.
And some people saw this as a sign, a foreshadowing of the extraordinary life she would lead. Do you think it's just a coincidence or a hint of destiny?
I mean, that's a dramatic start, isn't it? I think whether you believe in fate or not, it's hard to deny the impact this event had on Mary Anning's story. It makes you wonder, if this brush with death somehow shaped her perspective, her resilience, maybe even her fascination with the ancient creatures she would later uncover.
Definitely food for thought. Let's talk about Lyme Regis, the backdrop for this incredible story. So imagine a rugged coastline, cliffs practically bursting with fossils, a place where the history of life on Earth is literally etched into the rocks.
Yeah, Lyme Regis in the early 1800s was a fascinating mix of things. On one hand, it was this remote, somewhat dangerous place, unstable cliffs, constant threat of landslides. But on the other hand, it was becoming like a popular seaside resort. It was attracting visitors from all walks of life.
And right in the midst of it all was Mary Anning, the daughter of a poor cabinet maker who supplemented his income by selling fossils to tourists. Can you imagine a childhood spent combing the beaches for these remnants of a prehistoric world?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a hobby for Mary. It was a way of life, a means of survival, especially after her father tragically passed away when she was just 11 years old.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the harsh realities of the time, especially for a working class family. Fossiling became their lifeline, their only source of income. And here's where Mary's incredible talent starts to emerge. At the age of 12, she unearths the first complete skeleton of an ichthyosaurus,
Wow.
a marine reptile that lived millions of years ago.
12 years old.
Yeah.
That's younger than some kids starting middle school today. And this wasn't just some random fossil. This was a groundbreaking discovery.
Absolutely. The ichthyosaur skeleton challenged the prevailing scientific thought of the time.
Yeah.
It was a creature unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a real-life sea monster from a bygone era. And it was Mary Anning, a young girl with no formal education, who brought it to light.
Amazing. And this is just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
She goes on to discover the first plesiosaurs, another marine reptile with a long neck and flippers. It's a creature so bizarre that some scientists initially thought it was a fake.
I know, right? Think about that for a moment. Here's this young woman challenging the very foundations of scientific understanding, forcing experts to rethink their assumptions about the history of life on Earth. And she's doing it all while facing incredible societal constraints.
And this is where we start to see the Mad Genius Thesis at play.
Right.
The idea that her challenging circumstances, her lack of formal education, the constant struggle for recognition might have actually fueled her extraordinary focus and drive.
Yeah, it's a compelling argument. Was it purely coincidence that this woman, facing so many obstacles, managed to make such groundbreaking discoveries? Or was there something about her circumstances, the constant need to prove herself, that pushed her to see what others missed, to dig deeper, to question assumptions?
These are questions we'll be exploring throughout our deep dive into Mary Anning's life. And I have a feeling things are only going to get more interesting from here.
It's easy to picture those perfectly preserved skeletons, like in a museum when we think about Mary Anning's discoveries. But the reality of her work, much more rugged, far more dangerous.
Right, we're talking about the Jurassic coast of England, a place where the cliffs themselves were constantly eroding, prone to sudden landslides.
Exactly.
It wasn't just the fossils that were ancient. The landscape itself was a testament to the power of time and the elements.
And the tides. We can't forget the tides.
Yeah.
Mary had to work quickly and strategically, knowing that the sea could wash away a valuable find in an instant. It wasn't just a matter of finding the fossils. It was a race against nature to retrieve them, to preserve them.
It's clear she wasn't just lucky when you read about her process. She had a deep understanding of the cliffs.
Yeah.
Almost an intuitive sense of where to look.
Absolutely.
The book mentions that she could estimate the length of a creature by looking at the dorsal vertebrae. That's serious expertise, wouldn't you say?
Remarkable. She spent years observing the cliffs, learning their patterns, understanding the subtle clues that hinted at the presence of fossils. And this was all before the days of modern paleontological techniques. A pioneer, really. She was developing her own methods for excavation and preservation.
And those methods were often Quite ingenious.
Right.
Imagine using a simple hammer and chisel to carefully extract these fragile fossils from the rock, piece by painstaking piece. Must have required incredible patience and precision.
And strength. Don't forget the physical strength involved.
Oh,
I mean, some of these fossils, especially the larger skeletons, required her to hire quarrymen to help with the excavation.
wow.
It wasn't a dainty endeavor. Mary Anning was out there on those cliffs, battling the elements, working side by side with these men, all in the pursuit of scientific discovery.
It really challenges the stereotype of the Victorian-era woman.
It does.
She wasn't content to sit in a parlor embroidering samplers.
Right.
She was out there getting her hands dirty, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable for a woman of her time.
Absolutely, and it wasn't just the physical labor. She was also intellectually engaged, constantly striving to understand these creatures she was unearthing. Remember, this was a time when the very concept of extinction was still being debated.
Right.
Mary's discoveries were challenging long-held beliefs, forcing people to rethink the history of life on Earth.
And she was going up against some of the biggest names in science.
She was.
Men like William Buckland, Gideon Mantell, these are the giants of geology and paleontology.
Right.
And yet here's Mary Anning, this working-class woman, engaging with them on an intellectual level, even correcting them on occasion.
A testament to her intellect and her tenacity. She wasn't afraid to stand up for what she believed in, even when it meant challenging the established scientific authority.
Yeah.
Like when she discovered the fossil fish, Scalaraja, the experts initially misidentified it.
Oh, wow.
But Mary, based on her own careful observations and dissections, argued that it was something entirely new.
And she was right, of course.
Of course. It turned out to be a chimera, a type of cartilaginous fish related to sharks and rays. This wasn't just luck. It was the result of her meticulous observation skills and her willingness to question assumptions.
Exactly.
This brings us back to the Mad Genius Thesis.
Right.
Could it be that being constantly underestimated, overlooked by the scientific establishment, actually fueled Mary Anning's drive to be even more thorough, even more meticulous in her work? It's almost as if she knew she had to be undeniably brilliant to be heard at all.
It's a fascinating thought. And it's even more intriguing when you consider the fact that she was largely excluded from the formal scientific community. Women weren't allowed to join scientific societies. They couldn't present their findings or publish papers in their own names.
So she was making these incredible discoveries, contributing significantly to the advancement of paleontology, but she was constantly being sidelined, forced to operate in the shadows of the scientific world.
Which makes her achievements all the more remarkable. It's as if she had to overcome not just the physical challenges of her work, but also these invisible barriers erected by society.
Yeah.
And yet, she persisted.
She did. And, despite these challenges, she managed to build a reputation that extended far beyond Lyme Regis. People came from all over Europe to consult with her, to purchase her fossils, to learn from her expertise.
She became a figure of fascination.
She did. A woman who had unearthed these incredible creatures, who had challenged scientific thinking, and who had done it all while facing seemingly insurmountable odds.
Exactly. And it's this blend of scientific brilliance, personal resilience, and societal constraints that makes Mary Anning's story so compelling, so relevant even today. So we've talked about her remarkable discoveries, her tenacity, those societal barriers she faced. It makes you wonder how she navigated the relationships with the male geologists who really dominated the field at the time.
Yeah, it was a delicate dance for sure. She needed their support, to bring her discoveries to the wider scientific community. But she also had to contend with their inherent biases, their ingrained assumptions about a woman's place in science at the time.
It's fascinating. Take her interactions with William Buckland, for example, prominent figure in geology, the first professor of geology at Oxford.
Oh, Buckland. Buckland was an interesting character, to say the least.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Known for his eccentric personality, his fascination with all things geological, he was a frequent visitor to Lyme Regis.
And it seems he relied heavily on Mary's expertise.
Oh, he did. Buckland recognized her talent, her deep knowledge of the fossils and the terrain. They often went on collecting expeditions together, and he frequently consulted with her about his own research.
But it wasn't always a smooth collaboration, though. The book mentions that Mary held Buckland's anatomical science in great contempt, which suggests a certain level of intellectual friction between them.
Right. But, despite these differences of opinion, they maintained a strong friendship and a mutual respect for each other's work, which is a testament to both their personalities and the unique nature of their relationship.
Yeah. And it seems like she had a similar dynamic with many of the prominent geologists who came to Lyme Regis.
Yeah.
They relied on her knowledge, her ability to find and extract these incredible fossils. But they often failed to fully acknowledge her contributions in their scientific publications.
It's a classic example of how women in science were often marginalized back then, their work treated as secondary, even when it was essential to the advancement of the field.
It's almost like she was this hidden genius, the unseen force behind some of the most significant paleontological discoveries of the time.
Yeah, a hidden genius operating in a world that wasn't quite ready to recognize her brilliance. And this brings us back to the question we've been pondering, right? Did these very constraints, this constant struggle for recognition, actually contribute to Mary Anning's extraordinary drive and focus?
Right. Did being underestimated, overlooked, push her to be even more meticulous, even more thorough in her work?
Oh.
Did it fuel her determination to prove her worth through the undeniable evidence of her discoveries?
It's a question we can't definitively answer, but it's definitely worth considering. And as Mary Anning's story unfolds, we start to see glimmers of recognition emerging, albeit far too late.
Yeah. Toward the end of her life, she was granted a small annuity by the British government, just a small token of appreciation for her contributions to science.
And Louis Agassiz, the Swiss paleontologist, he named 2 fossil fish species after her.
It's a small consolation, perhaps, but it's a sign that her work was finally starting to be acknowledged, even if it was long after she deserved it.
Right. And even in the face of declining health, a diagnosis of breast cancer, she never stopped working. She continued to collect fossils, to study them, to share her knowledge with others.
Wow. That's a testament to her passion, her unwavering dedication to the science she loved.
Absolutely. And, while she may not have received the full recognition she deserved during her lifetime, her legacy has only grown in the years since her death.
Yeah. Today, Mary Anning is celebrated as one of the most important figures in the history of paleontology. Her discoveries helped shape our understanding of prehistoric life, and her story continues to inspire generations of scientists, especially women who are often still fighting for their rightful place in the scientific community.
It's a reminder that brilliance can emerge from unexpected places, and that those who challenge conventions, who dare to push boundaries, often make the most profound contributions to our understanding of the world.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Mary Anning, I think we're left with a sense of awe at her accomplishments, a touch of sadness at the lack of recognition she received during her lifetime, and a renewed appreciation for the power of human curiosity and the importance of challenging the status quo.
Yeah. Her story is a testament to the idea that even in the face of adversity, the human spirit can triumph. And those who dare to dig deeper, to question assumptions, to see the world with fresh eyes, they can unearth extraordinary things.
And perhaps, just perhaps, Mary Anning's story will inspire us to look a little closer, to listen a little more intently, to recognize and celebrate the hidden geniuses who are all around us, shaping our world in ways we may not even fully comprehend.